Welcome to the Warning Track Power Hour. I am Dr. Andrew Scaff. He is Dr. Michael Werman, Esquire. We're going to talk today about last week's NFL games, preview next week's week 10 for the NFL, and provide some new picks. We'll talk just a little bit about the World Series since that wrapped up since our last episode. But we'll kick off today's episode with a question about interesting performances from week 9 of the NFL. Mike, which performance did you find more impressive? The 470-yard rookie record for quarterback passing yardage for CJ Stroud from Houston, or the Josh Dobbs getting traded, becoming a Viking on a Tuesday, being thrust into the game on Sunday, not really knowing the playbook, having never taken a snap from his center or run route, or looked at routes for his with his receivers, maybe not even knowing the names of his players, possibly even having his wide receivers tell them what the routes were during the huddles. Which of those two things did you find more impressive? Both incredibly impressive, though, feats.
Yeah, I think both were impressive. I guess I found the Josh Dobbs thing more impressive simply because it reminded me a little bit of the Baker Mayfield. So it maybe seems a little less impressive simply because Baker Mayfield did something very similar last year, and also Joshua Dobbs did something very similar this year when he started with the Cardinals after being traded very right before the season started from the Steelers.
Right.
Last year he was on the Titans and made a start, very without much preparation time either. So he's been bouncing around a lot, and this seems to be what he's good at, absorbing things quickly. But I think this was more impressive simply because he was not expected to start. So they thought probably, like he wasn't probably immersed in the same way that maybe Baker Mayfield was when he joined the Rams, when they knew he had to start that first game.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think Baker Mayfield's better when he doesn't prepare, or when somebody doesn't really know what he's going to do. I think he relies on that element of surprise and is pretty good at kind of spitballing things
Yeah.
and just winging it. I think when he has to prepare more and teams know more what he's going to do, I think he's less effective. But Dobbs, I think in this case, he wasn't supposed to start. He that was he came in when
Hill, I think, with Jaron.
yeah, when Jared, yeah, Jaron, is it Jaron Hill? Jared, I remember. And he was Jaron Hall.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
when Jaron Hall was I guess concussed early on, and so like in the early to mid first quarter, he had to come in and he led the team. It was a road game. It was a big win. I think Minnesota is maybe a playoff team even without Justin Jefferson for a little while, even without Kirk Cousins, maybe for the
Yeah.
rest of the season. If Dobbs
I'm
can be
pretty sure we
okay,
actually said that last week, even.
yeah, I think we did. So this is one of the few
And
times
not
where we're
and
correct.
not even knowing that Dobbs was going to have that performance.
Yeah, so I thought Dobbs maybe would come in next week and start, but Jaron Hall would be the rookie from BYU would be like the spot starter, and
Yeah.
that's what O'Connell and the coaching staff planned in Minnesota. But yeah, Dobbs, I found Dobbs's kind of impromptu performance a little more impressive because he kind of led them on a comeback win and had a big offensive day, rushing touchdowns, passing touchdowns. Like he had a he led the team in rushing, I think. So
Did,
um,
dude. 66 yards and 7 carries and a touchdown.
yeah, because the Vikings have had a lot of injuries on the offense, um,
Mm.
and and no, it's no Dalvin Cook anymore. So can't yeah, so it's been an impressive run, especially seeing that they beat the 49ers. They played the Chiefs pretty tough. They
Mhm.
had and that was with Jefferson being shut down basically the entire game against the Chiefs. So they've
Right.
been pretty good even without him playing well. So I guess that was the most impressive, although I do think that Stroud's performance was also very impressive. I think he's yeah, I think this is also something we got right. I think before the season started, we both thought. I think, at least I thought. I think you did. You agreed at least that
Yeah,
we thought Stroud was probably the better um, quarterback of Bryce
the,
Young and C.J. Stroud.
yeah,
Like
of the two.
we would
Yeah,
both have taken Stroud number one if we had to pick between those two. We thought maybe I think Anthony Richardson had the most upside, which he still could have, but
he
we don't.
showed flashes of having that upside even really early this season before he,
Yeah, he had a
had
Lamar
multiple
Jackson kind
injuries.
of quality to him,
Yeah.
but I think Stroud. I think maybe at worst he's probably Dak Prescott. It seems like he's not the most flashy, but he makes pretty good decisions. He makes good throws, and he can throw a lot for a lot of yards in the right system. And I am
And
impressed with.
apparently has ice in his veins
I said
too.
there's no vegetables or whatever. I didn't
No
understand
veggies.
what that meant. There was a TikTok about I don't know who was the guy who
Oh,
said
I don't even remember who it was now.
was
It was a fantastic line though.
it Stingley? I think I don't know who it
I
was,
can,
but it was
I've got it. I can look it up.
um but yeah, he played really well. So maybe while you're looking that up, we'll have a trivia question. So CJ Stroud set the record for the most passing yards by a rookie quarterback. Who had the record before CJ Stroud? CJ Stroud, as you remember, his name is Coleridge Bernard Stroud the fourth. You
Yeah,
know, so
I'd already forgotten that
So we
too.
think it must be Coleridge Jr. That CJ stands for, but um,
Right.
it was another quarterback who, well, I guess CJ. We don't know who CJ Stroud's father is really. I think he was never a professional athlete. This quarterback's father is known for being a sports executive. I'll give you that much. He set the record in 2012. He's no longer in the league, but he was a very good quarterback in the NFL.
Uh, I got nothing, Mike.
Played,
All
played
blank.
for played for Anthony Richardson's old team or new or current team. Anthony Richardson's team.
Oh, oh, he's not in the league because of injuries.
Well, he retired.
No, no.
This is Andrew Luck.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like in injury related and then retired.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Andrew
think
Luck.
he kind of
That makes
lost
sense.
his passion for it. But yeah, Oliver Luck was Andrew Luck's dad, who was the Big 12
Right,
for a
right,
while.
right.
And
Okay. So how many yards was that though? Was this a
Luck
destroying of the
passed for
record or was it close?
433. So it was well, 37 yards over. So it wasn't
Terrible, yeah.
just like 2 yards over or something. So it was
Yeah.
significantly over. He threw for 433 against Miami in back in 2012. Speaking of passing yardage, I have another trivia question for you. So right now, we'll talk about the Chiefs Dolphins matchup in a second. Uh, Patrick Mahomes hasn't had a great season, but he's still number three in the NFL in passing yardage. He's passed for 2,442 yards. Number one was his opponent last week, and that was Tua Tagovailoa, who's passed for 2,609 yards. So he's number one in terms of passing yards in the NFL. Who is number two right now in passing yardage?
I know the other receiver that has a really high, that's I think near uh the leader like in receiving yards is AJ Brown, I think. Is it Jalen Hurts?
Jalen Hurts is number five right now. He's 2,347, so about 100 yards fewer than Mahomes, 95 yards
Okay.
fewer.
Um
I'll give you a hint. There's also
hmm.
a bit of a Kansas City connection. We'll say not a player connection really, but a coaching connection.
Well, that doesn't necessarily narrow it. Is there a lot of like Andy Reid guys elsewhere. But Jacksonville,
Ooh, no.
is it
Trevor Lawrence is number 15. He's only thrown for
wow.
1935, but he's only had
Well,
8 games.
thinking of their coach was a former
Yeah,
Kansas City
the
uh
you're
offensive
you're
coordinator.
probably missing the obvious. This is Eric Bieniemy's current quarterback.
Oh,
Sam
Heineke?
Howell is
No, I don't
number.
Heineke. How? See, I even like went to the wrong guy immediately too, because I always forget. Sam Howell is number two.
Sam Howell has
Wow.
2,471 yards, passing 274.6 yards per game. Um, the leaders would actually be, if they all played the same number of games, Kirk Cousins would be number one, and CJ Stroud would actually be number three. He
Okay.
passed 283.8 yards per game.
Oh,
Mahomes is
yards
only
per
passed
game. Yeah.
271.3. So Jared Goff would also be around Mahomes' number if he had another game. So Mahomes has been off in terms of passing yards. In terms of QBR, the ESPN quarterback rating, Mahomes is third behind Josh Allen and Brock Purdy. In terms of passer rating, Mahomes is number 11 at 96.7, so he's under 100. So
Wow.
he's not having a great season by his normal stretch, but um,
But the
Tua is,
team is still leading the AFC and
yeah.
yeah.
They're still leading the AFC. They're number one seed, even though they lost to Denver. They're still the number one seed, and they beat Miami. So they've beaten two of the three division leaders already. So they have the tiebreaker over Miami. They have the tiebreaker over Jacksonville as well. They haven't
Mm.
played the
Anybody
uh,
from the north yet?
anybody from the north yet. But by the time they play Cincinnati, that could be a way for the Chiefs to really hold the tiebreaker advantage over a lot of teams and allow them maybe to lose a game here or there if they had to lose, if they lost maybe to Buffalo or to Philadelphia or something like that as the season goes on. So that Cincinnati game might become very important. But maybe before we talk about future Chiefs, what did you think of the Chiefs game in Frankfurt, Deutschland, am Sonntag?
The first half was fantastic. Everything looked really good early on. Defense was holding up. Offense had their scripted drive, went straight down and got a touchdown. Uh, and then there was that fantastic defensive strip fumble lateral into the return
Mm-hmm.
for a touchdown for Cook. Was
I
that
was a little
one of your
surprised.
best plays of the year, do you think?
Yeah, it was a great play. I was a little surprised they kept it was not overturned by video because it looked like Hill didn't quite have it, but he sort of held on to it. It was a little bit like that Kelsey play from a couple of weeks ago where they said Kelsey fumbled, even though he never really had it. So I guess maybe it was the same standard that was used at least there.
Yeah.
So it really was a great play by McDuffie to strip it, and then um,
Mike
Edwards
Edwards to
like
scoop
Edwards
it
to
and
see
then make the eye contact with Cook.
Cook, and then Cook ran probably faster than he's ever run on the football field before. He was the fastest ball carrier of any Chief this year,
Wow.
according to the next gen stats or whatever measurement that does it. And he outran fast Miami players. I think Mostert was on the field. Hill and Waddle were probably both on the field at the same time. So like those are three of the fastest players in the NFL, and Cook is I think a 4.59. I think I saw 40-yard dash time. Maybe his 100-yard dash is a little bit faster. Who knows? But
Yeah.
so he not faster than his 40, but faster on average.
Per unit of distance.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
he ran amazingly. He ran like a track, like a Usain Bolt kind of technique, running
Right.
to the sideline, and that put the Chiefs up 21-0. And even though they had a terrible second half, Mahomes fumbled it in deep in Chiefs territory. Chris Jones had another dumb penalty that basically allowed Miami to have a touchdown rather than maybe going for a long field goal. Yeah, they still won, but are you concerned about the way they won? They didn't play well at all in the second half. They scored 0 points in the second half. They relied on their defense again. What's up with the Chiefs? Do you think that they're teetering on the verge of disaster, or are they they could only go up from here?
I mean, if it's the second one, this is a pretty good, low end expectation for the team. Being at 6-7-2,
2,
6-2,
7-2
7-2. Yeah. Wait. Yes. Yeah. 7-2.
on the bye
And
now.
going into that bye week where they can talk about a lot of things, and maybe they can straighten out some of the things that aren't going right, like maybe some of the offensive play calling. Maybe they'll make some changes. I know you had some
Yeah,
ideas about what may have happened based on what you saw, and I think from what you've told me, I think it makes sense actually. So
my theory is like, yeah, that Matt Nagy is the problem. Because Eric Bieniemy, we just saw Eric Bieniemy turning Sam Howell into the second most prolific passer in terms of yardage in the NFL this year.
yeah,
And it seems like probably the first drive is usually scripted ahead of time. That probably has a lot of input, if not a majority of the input, by Andy Reid. And then you think, okay, well, A. Reid says, well, why don't we turn over the reins? We got that touchdown. Let's let Matt Nagy carry it for a while. And then, oh, we're not doing so well at the end of the half. Let's have more input from Coach Reid. They score a touchdown on that drive, and then they get the right after that they get the turnover, fumble return, touchdown, lateral returned by Cook. So they're up 21-0, but they were up 14-0. Basically, they had two touchdown drives at the very beginning and the very end of the half, and then maybe they think, well, we're up by 21 now. Let's just let Nagy go all the way through because we don't want to show them anything interesting.
well, and,
Because
then they got a defensive stop on the first drive for Miami coming out of the second half, and then it's like, okay, well, maybe they're just going to start ARG time right now.
yes, the Andy Reid gentleman home stretch, but I don't know if it was that, or maybe the problem is just we're letting Nagy do too much. And the one game the Chiefs offense played really, really well was the game against the Bears, and that was Nagy's old team. So maybe if Nagy was the coach, maybe he had an extra edge in that game that
Yeah,
he had since. And so like I don't know what's going on. Like we also before we were on air, we discovered that Matt Nagy is only a few months older than we are, and that was surprising since he's got the shaved head because he's bald. We all know he's bald. He's not hiding anything. But so he's grayer than even we are. So I thought that maybe he was at least 50, early 50s. You thought maybe he's 55, but he's only
yeah,
40.
maybe, yeah,
He's an April 1978 birthday, so he's only 6 months
like
older than
6 months older than me. Yeah,
um, I still am a young 44. Well, you're 45 now, so I have another month of 44ness,
that's right.
and but still, that was yeah. But
It was,
I'm worried that maybe it's play calling. I don't know if it's Nagy, maybe, but also maybe it's the system that's being run is not as innovative. There don't seem to be a lot of easy throws from Mahomes.
yeah,
The first drive was pretty easy for him, but
yeah.
after that, like everything was tough. And then they stopped throwing it to the guys that were good in the first half. They stopped throwing it to Tony. They stopped throwing it to Moore. They stopped throwing it to Kelsey.
Well,
And
two of those guys had iffy games the week before, and it was nice to see them getting integrated, back into the offense. Like, oh, we're not worried about you. Here's the ball,
yeah,
and
and
they performed well. And it's like, okay, well, now
Warwick,
this opens so many more doors for the team now that they have, all these different options to go to. And then they didn't seem to go to any of them in the
yeah,
second half.
Moore looked
Yeah,
especially good in the first half, I thought. Also,
yeah.
Richie Rice, of course, has been showing that he's been maybe that touchdown pass that he caught after it turned out that Watson did not catch the ball in the end zone. When I thought that was probably going to be overturned. Just even watching it live, I didn't think he caught it,
Yeah.
but
Well, and
Um,
you knew who it was, I guess, too, right? So it's like,
yeah,
oh, he probably dropped it. I don't know.
I don't. Yeah, Watson is okay every once. Like he's good. He has become to me sort of the Daniel Sorensen on offense. Like he will make a great play every once in a while, but he will not make a good play a lot of the times.
Yeah,
And I think you notice how bad it is more on defense than you do on offense, because the worst thing that can happen usually is a drop pass and it's a punt rather than a missed coverage and a touchdown for the other team, which
yeah,
is what Sorensen usually did. Like he'd come up with a great interception or fumble recovery touchdown or something like that, but then he would blow a coverage and allow a touchdown. But
yeah.
yeah, I think Watson's kind of that guy on offense. He'll make a spectacular catch here and there, but he'll also miss a lot of big plays. And I
Seemingly
don't.
easier
He didn't.
plays sometimes
He
too.
didn't really do anything last week to warrant that. Like that was a diving catch. That was going to be hard to catch anyway, so that wasn't his real fault. But
I
like
think he had
that,
one other catch that was pretty good that got him a first down earlier on, I think even. But
yeah.
yeah,
But Chiefs just couldn't do anything the second half, and I don't think it was really because of what Miami did, but I think a lot of it is play calling, and I don't know, Mahomes seems a little off this year, and I wonder if it's just that he's getting two very different inputs. Maybe it's Reed sometimes, it's Nagy sometimes, and they don't really mesh very well. I'm not,
it's possible. Yeah,
so I'm a little worried about the offense. The defense has been great. I'm worried that, the defense, if they don't play at a kind of all-world level, that the Chiefs might not do so well. So I'm thinking that the Chiefs could be in that kind of position where it's only up from here, but they also
yeah.
could be in a position where they're lucky to be where they are and they will regress towards the mean at some other point.
I just like how it was a few years ago we were, questioning if the defensive coordinator was good enough to be, staying on the team. Like maybe they needed to replace him early in the season, even a couple of years ago, because the team's defense was so bad. And this is the same defensive coordinator with like basically all new personnel, and now they look fantastic. So
Yeah, this is maybe it's
maybe we don't need to be super hasty about making judgments on Andy Reid's coordinators, but also it's hard not to though at the same time.
Reed does seem to show loyalty to team to player or to coaches that maybe longer maybe than they should. Bob Sutton was the defensive coordinator before Spags became one, and maybe he should have been gone a couple of years earlier. Spagnuolo maybe though does things very differently. And this might be last year might have been really his first year with all of his guys,
Yeah.
and now he's his guys, his young secondary, the young linebacking core, the defensive
Well,
line has been
last
very
year
good.
we could see a really big step forward because the team just looked so much faster on defense than they had looked in previous seasons, and now they seem to have made another step forward too,
Yeah, the
which is
defensive line has
really
been
nice.
good. Jones has been kind of cold the last few weeks.
Yeah,
He really started out very hot with his new contract, but he hasn't done a lot the last couple of weeks. And this past week he was more of a negative than a positive with his
hmm
penalty. Um, but since Amenahu's been in, he has really helped a lot.
Karlaftis had been really good, and
Nani has
then
been strong in the middle.
yeah, even Dana too was pretty good in the middle too.
Orton
Yeah,
got a sack last week.
yeah,
So yeah, it's been a lot of players. Um, Anunoke Azama hasn't been playing a ton since he's been back, but
yeah,
he's I think was decent while he was a bigger rotational piece. But
yeah,
yeah, there's a line even with Bolton now and Gay being out recently. The
yeah.
linebacking core has been good. I think Tranquil has been a really good addition to
It's
step
really
in for,
stepped up. Yeah,
and Chanel has made progress this
yeah,
season. It seemed like last season Chanel he rushed the passer a lot and almost got sacks, but this year he's
yeah,
getting quarterback and causing actual disruption rather than kind of almost doing it. So
yeah,
and the safeties have been good, and the corners have it's been a defense like at all three levels has been really good.
yeah. And realistically, that's a much easier place to start from if you're trying to build a championship team, is if you have a good defense that is reliable, not that you have to like hope that they're going to score defensively so that you can win, but like they may actually just contribute so that your offense doesn't have to carry the team.
Yeah, if you can hold the other team under
Sometimes.
20, and they've been well under 20 most of these games, you're going to win most of your ball games. So
Absolutely. And the Chiefs did they let Miami, and like, so Miami got to Frankfurt a week or ahead of time, and the Chiefs only got to Frankfurt a few days before the game. Do you think that's had a factor in the game then too?
yeah, the Chiefs are only arrived on Friday, so like that's interesting because I guess they didn't really care too much about
Time
the
change and
time change.
yeah.
But the Chiefs also, but so they started the game at 9. Basically, they started the game at 9:30 in the morning rather than noon Arrowhead. I guess it was 8:30 in the morning Central Time,
In Central,
rather
yeah.
than so it was an early game, but it was a more, I don't know. I think the Chiefs, the training camp starts early, so I think having an early game for a team like that isn't so bad. And I don't know
Yeah.
how much, and maybe being fresher and just not worrying too much, and maybe psychologically psyching yourself out about the time change has something to do. I don't know. They had a great start, and then maybe they faded, so maybe they ran
Yeah.
out of gas. I don't. Yeah, hard to
It's
say.
just another thing that the two teams did differently anyway that, you know, could have been a factor at least anyway in how the game played out.
Yeah, but there was that tale of two halves where it seemed like, well, the it was all Chiefs first half and then all Dolphins second half. So maybe the Chiefs maybe were there. Maybe they felt like they were starting out strong and just on adrenaline, and then got tired, and then maybe the Dolphins just kind of gradually went up. I don't. Yeah, it's hard to say
They
what.
made some adjustments and the Chiefs didn't react to them very well, maybe. I don't
It may not have mattered. May not have had anything to do with what time they
know.
um, got to Germany or got to the stadium or
Yeah.
whatever. It's hard to say whether this is actual data that and a variable that influences things, or if it's just noise.
Well,
That
and, the Chiefs are also going to like assume that Miami is going to be a team that they may meet again in the playoffs. Maybe they just didn't want to show them too much
I
of
think
like
that's
what
I
their
think that's
offense
very
is.
possible.
It seems like Reed does do that during the season, especially with teams that he may face twice. He's not scheduled to face twice, but he may face twice, depending on who they,
Yeah, I
draw in the
think he
playoffs.
does that a lot. And I think more than any other team, the Chiefs hide things for the playoffs. And I think partly is because they're always in the playoffs, so there's a lot of playoff footage of the Chiefs. So they've been forced to show a lot more of their playbook in the playoffs than a lot of these other teams have, because they've
Yeah.
played at least 2 or 3 games every postseason for the last 6 years now. So they have a lot of material that's available, and other
Yeah.
teams don't have it. I'm not sure what the second most playoff games for any team since Mahomes has been the starter uh, has been, but it's hard. The Chiefs have played at least they haven't had a first round playoff exit since Alex Smith was the quarterback, and they've played at least 2-3 games in the playoffs every year since. So
Yeah. So again, though, if the question is, am I worried about the Chiefs? No. I mean, they're a playoff team. They've been a playoff team. We've seen how they perform in the playoffs and in tight games and against teams that they're supposed to be, competitive or possibly lose to. They still seem to come out on top. So I don't know. If you're asking me if I'm worried about them, no, not at all.
not at all. I'm
Are
more
you
worried. I
worried?
think I'm more worried than you are, because I do think that the offense, maybe it's not just they're hiding things. Maybe it's gotten a bit stale because doesn't seem to be a lot of easy throws for Mahomes this year. And maybe it's just that the receivers are too young, and maybe it's just like the secondary was so young last year. Maybe the receivers are really young this year and inexperienced with the Chiefs, and so maybe they'll come around. But a lot of those guys were here last year though, so you'd think that they'd be
Yeah.
better already rather than worse. So it's hard to, I don't know, it's hard to say.
You'd hope that they would have taken a step forward, some of those guys at least anyway. And
Yeah, it seems like none of them
maybe they
have.
haven't, but
Only Rice has kind of seemed like he's improved as time has gone
yeah.
on.
But they were,
Yeah,
we're still not,
so nothing good.
we're just at basically at the halfway point of the season, and the bye week is here now. So it's
Yeah,
there's plenty of time to like straighten things out. I mean, even if it's like the first game of the playoffs and they still haven't figured it out, I'm still not super worried until they're like way behind. But even then, we've seen the Chiefs come back in games where they're behind in the last several years in the Mahomes era.
yeah.
I don't even know, it's like halftime when they're down by 28 points. I don't know. I don't know if that's time to even worry. So I don't know.
I'd worry at halftime down 28, but yeah, even yeah, against the they came back against the Texans, they came back against the Titans, they came back against the 49ers that postseason. They've I had thought even when they were way down against the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl that they still had a chance to come back until the
Yeah.
very end, but they should have been a lot closer to that game because that was one of the things where Tyreek Hill, he dropped stuff and fumbled things for the Chiefs every once in a while. This is what he ended up doing that for the Dolphins this week. So he's a great player, but he does sometimes make mistakes in clutch moments. Sometimes he's fantastic in clutch, so it's hard to blame him. But if he gets the ball so many times, you're not gonna be perfect with it every time. But speaking of not perfect with it every time, do we want to talk about our bets this week?
Sure.
Last week,
Nice transition there. That's good.
yeah. So on our locks of the week, neither of us were completely successful. You were a little bit better than I was this week. I believe you were 2-1. I was only 1-2. Do you want to talk about your victories or your loss first, Dr. Scaff?
I'd throw my loss out there. It's the maddening uh Pittsburgh team that I just cannot figure out at all.
That
They
was
somehow win games. But I had Tennessee +3 at Pittsburgh. I don't think Pittsburgh even played well at all, and they somehow still won. I don't get it.
Levis has
And
become a pretty good quarterback, it looks like. I think he's
yeah,
up there with Stroud almost, maybe in terms of first year success, or could be by the end of the year. But
yeah,
he's been much better than Tannehill was this year. He's much better than Willis was last year. That's for sure in terms of numbers and being able to throw the ball pretty well. I don't know if he makes the decisions as well as Stroud does, but he's a big arm. He's a Josh Allen kind of type, I would say, more than I think Stroud is that. I keep comparing him with Dak Prescott, but I'm not sure if that's just because they're both black and Josh Allen and Will Levis are both white. I don't want to make that determination, but I think it's strong arm quarterback, white versus good decision making quarterback and who's not especially flashy. I think Prescott though could run the ball more than what Stroud has shown. Stroud maybe is also maybe more of a Jared Goff type of player, something like that, which is still pretty good. But
yeah.
he's proven to be better than Bryce Young, who's as we thought, too tiny to be a good quarterback in the National Football League. He's a pocket passer, as we've said in
Yes,
first sense of the
and
word.
not the kind that stands in the pocket.
Yeah, CJ Stroud is a pocket passer who stands in the pocket. Bryce Young is a pocket passer who would fit in your pocket.
Yes, there you go.
But so yeah, in on our big board, one of the few bright spots I had. You're destroying me on the big board when we're betting every game. But I did sweep that Pittsburgh Tennessee game because I thought Pittsburgh would win. I don't understand why Pittsburgh wins, but I'm just going with that Pittsburgh is probably going to win a game against a team, and so I'm just doing that.
I refuse to accept that. I will not bet that. They don't make any sense. I'm not going to bet. They have to start losing. There has to be a reversion to the mean. It's not a good team. They cannot win that many games.
Yeah, I
But apparently, I will continue to lose money on those games by having that mentality. Where I should maybe just go ahead and follow your strategy until they do start losing. Maybe that should be my strategy with them. Anyway,
Yeah, well, I ended up. We'll talk about our bets next week. I've ended up picking Pittsburgh again this week, um, but yeah. So, but anyway, yeah. So my first bet of the week, they actually made for our locks of the week. I picked a game that ended up being what I think should have been a good bet, but Seattle really didn't score enough points to make it even close. I thought maybe that the Ravens would win, but I thought Seattle would be at least be able to score 10 or 20, maybe 10 or 20 points in that game. They
no.
only scored 3. They lost 37-3 to the Ravens. I picked the Ravens Seahawks over 42.5. I think I was on the right side because the number actually went up to 44.5 later. So I think I was on the smart money side early on, but I got the best number. But yeah, the Ravens defense just dominated and they ran the ball. I think they ran for like 300 yards against the Seahawks, and
Yeah.
just had 3 points. Lamar Jackson only threw for like 100 yards or something like that. He didn't even need to do anything, and it was just Dobbins and it was Gus Edwards and new guys and
Keaton
and
Mitchell, 9 carries, 138 yards.
yeah. So if you can run for 9 times for 138 yards, that's pretty.
Yeah. Lamar
So
Jackson was 187, but that's still not.
for passing,
Yeah, that's not it. That's I mean that's not that impressive.
no, that's about an
It's
average. He's usually under about
a
he's usually
solid
under
game.
200. Well, he didn't need to run it a whole lot either this past week, so he was. Uh,
Yeah.
they just won easily. That's the second straight blowout against a strong NFC team. Seattle had beaten the Lions, but yeah, the previous week Baltimore beat the Lions in 38-6. They won this week 37-3. So I had thought, well, if they blow them out 38-6, there'd at least be 6. If Seattle had simply scored 6 points, it would have gotten the over for me. So of course it's my loss, but I do sort of blame Seattle for not showing up.
Would you consider blaming Baltimore for the loss because they took a fourth down kneel down at the Seattle 5 yard line rather than kicking the field goal to hit the over? They just turned it over on downs to let Seattle in the game with a one play kneel down. They could have kicked the field goal
They could have kicked the field goal. That would have covered
and
the
took it
spread.
over.
Yeah, I'm sure they
Yeah.
didn't do it simply to ruin my chances. I didn't even know. I didn't realize that was the end of it. I was
I just looked it up because I was curious. I was
that
like, well,
is
maybe there was a missed field goal, or was there anything that I didn't see? There
that
wasn't.
makes me a little more irritated now.
Yeah.
That's
So
very
you could blame
gentlemanly.
either team for not getting, one field goal, and
I blame
Baltimore
them.
had a chance to kick a field goal, but it was a gentlemanly not kicking the field goal. I mean, is it gentlemanly if you only win by 34, but if you win by
You know,
37,
Sean McVay
then
would
you
have kicked that field goal.
deserve probably.
Uh, yeah,
Anyway,
but anyway, I missed that one. I'll blame Sean McVay for another one of my losses in a second. But do you want to cover your second choice?
sure. I had the recently coach transitioned Las Vegas Raiders at -2.5 against the Giants that I don't know why they have any offense at all. So that
Not with Tommy DeVito as quarterback, that's for sure.
yeah. Well, and it was Daniel Jones did start
But he tore
and
his
then he
ACL.
tore his ACL. So he becomes like the third major-ish quarterback to have torn an ACL this season.
Or no, Achilles. It
Oh no,
was
they're
the
Achilles, two Achilles, and now yeah, that's right.
Mhm.
That's right. Yeah, but still, major injury. Yeah, in Daniel Jones, but maybe that's kind of merciful because he had not been playing that well. Uh, but I
We
don't
had
know.
both predicted the Giants to take a step back this year, but I don't think either of us thought they'd take this big a step back. But
No.
Antonio Pierce as the new coach. So let me phrase. So remember when Gruden went out a couple of years ago because of his numerous scandals in the 2021 season. We had Rich Bisaccia come in and lead the Raiders to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
10-7 record, but then he got passed over for the job for Josh McDaniels. if Pierce does a good job with the Raiders, what are they, 4-5 now? So
I think so,
they're
yeah.
in the thick, really, of the playoff race if they can win a couple games here and there. If Pierce gets the team close to playoff contention, will he get the job, or will Mark Davis do the same thing he did last time and go for another
Clown
outside?
show of a coach.
Yeah.
Re-sign McDaniels.
Maybe he'll
Uh,
bring in Nathaniel Hackett as
I mean, that would make sense because that would follow the same trend that got them McDaniels, right? Because they watched
the
Denver
retread terrible coach.
fire
Yeah.
somebody and then grab that guy. Like, yeah, I think it's down. But yeah, I mean, they scored, the Raiders scored what their highest point total for the season by quite a lot. I think 21 was their previous season high, and I think they hit 30 in this game. So apparently you subtract McDaniels and you add a bunch of points. That's not a bad way to go in 1 week.
Went 30-6, so they won by 24. This was
Uh,
another one of the games
easily.
where we ended up on the big board sweeping because we picked the same things, and we both thought, I think, that this is even before Daniel Jones went down. We thought that the Raiders
Yeah,
would cover. I think
yeah,
usually that first game with an interim coach is always a very good sort of bounce back. So even Jeff Saturday won his first game against these same Raiders, of course. We could think about the Romeo Crennel game when the Chiefs beat the heavily favored Green Bay Packers that season.
yeah.
So
And that was a really bad season too.
I think, wasn't that the year the Packers won the Super Bowl? Was it the year they won the Super Bowl? It was
So, but what
uh,
was the Chiefs record that year?
2-15 or 3-14, something like that.
Like
It was
3 and
2 and
13
14,
maybe.
3 and 13, something like, yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
4 and
But they
12.
got one of those wins with Cornell, right? So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was so yeah. So the Raiders, speaking of we mentioned Sean McVay earlier, maybe not worrying about covering the spread. He did not even come close to covering the spread this game. And that was because Matthew Stafford was hurt. I didn't realize Stafford, I thought he was still going to play. I didn't realize he was going to be out. I guess his thumb has been worse off than people thought. Wasn't it Brett Rippon who got the start?
Yeah.
Longer a Ram as of tonight because now the Rams have brought in Carson Wentz as their new quarterback, at least maybe long-term or short-term starter while Stafford heals, or maybe longer-term starter if he stays out for a while. But the Rams lost to Green Bay 20-3. They were 3-point underdogs, which I thought was surprising because I thought the Rams would do better. But without a
Yeah.
quarterback to throw the ball, even Mark Rippon's nephew, I guess, couldn't get the job done. So the Rams lost 23. I don't have much to say about that game. I didn't watch it, but it was ugly.
Yeah, that's pretty bad, especially the Green Bay Packers team that neither of us think much of
No, we
either.
don't.
So that's not very
I'm betting
good.
against Green Bay next week, and so as part of my locks of the week. So
Will you start betting against the Rams now too because they cost you this bet, or because you don't think that they can win without Stafford? Oh, and by
I'm
the
just
way, they didn't just demote Rippon from starting quarterback; they actually released him from the roster.
Yeah, he's gone. Maybe he's on the practice squad or will be on the practice squad, but yeah, he has gone completely in
Yeah,
place. In his place now we have Carson Wentz, who we thought probably should have a job somewhere in the league at the beginning of the season, but now he's finally getting maybe a chance to start here with the Rams. Maybe he can come in like Baker Mayfield did last year and maybe win a game here and there early on for those Rams.
I think we talked about the Rams being a potential spot for Wentz
Yeah.
when we did our quarterback special before the season started. Pretty
Yeah,
sure
because
that was on
they
the
didn't
list
have much at the backup position, and we thought that was a weakness and maybe something the Rams should have addressed more, but they didn't really. So
earlier, so they wouldn't have to go through this now, right?
I guess they have Stetson Bennett on the roster somewhere. Maybe they didn't want to. Maybe he's not ready. He's sort of a Johnny Manziel type, I think. Really good in college, but sort of a drunk and a jerk, and maybe he's somewhere between Baker Mayfield and Manziel. in
And
terms
isn't he
of
like super old? Isn't he like already getting his AARP cards and stuff?
26, I think, something like that. For a recent college graduate, that's not so good. But it wasn't like he was, it wasn't like he was like taking a lot of graduate sociology courses or something like that. He wasn't a biochemistry major like you, Dr. Scaff. He was, I think, just a frat boy kind of type who got to go to college for 7 years and was just because like play football and just get drunk at everybody's house and things like that. So I think that's Stetson Bennett. I think he's Manzielish even more than Mayfieldish, who hasn't been the greatest either. But
Well, we really have no idea who's going to be starting this coming week for the Rams, but it could be
could be
Wentz,
Wentz.
it could be Bennett, it could be
Stafford
Stafford
perhaps.
could be back. So like
Yeah.
really it could be anybody as far as we know. Like so making bets on the Rams may not be a great idea for either of us today. Maybe we should wait until
Yeah.
closer to game time to actually make that decision on those games. But we'll talk about our bets a little bit later in the show.
Yes. How about your third bet, which is another win for you?
Third pick was on the Monday night game that I didn't want to watch, but I did watch part of it. I had the Chargers -3 at the Jets. The Chargers defense was better than the Jets defense, I guess, and scored more points because both offenses were horrible, Mike. Horrible. It was a terrible game. But the Chargers won pretty handily and covered that 3-point spread by quite a lot. I don't think it was even close.
AFC West teams against New York teams. Both of the AFC West teams covered. The AFC West is becoming a little bit more competitive now with Denver winning against the Chiefs, and then the Raiders and the Chargers both approaching 500.
Mhm.
That there's maybe the AFC West could sneak a second playoff team in there.
Take it away from the AFC North, which is dominating the wild card right now.
And I think the AFC East probably also thinks that they can get at least two playoff teams.
Yeah.
With Buffalo and Miami. But the AFC North, but all the teams are at least 2 games over 500. Even though I think we both think that Pittsburgh's really a fraud. I don't think either of us think Cleveland is very good, but I think the Ravens and the Bengals both could be very good. Is that your assessment of that division?
I think so too. Yeah. I thought you were going to use that as a lead-in for your third pick.
Well, I am. I thought that Cleveland was a good team, but I don't think they're a great team. So I didn't bet them. I didn't bet the spread in the Cleveland Arizona game, but I did bet the under. I thought that Cleveland would win easily, but I didn't think they'd score a ton of points against Arizona's defense. I didn't see where Arizona was going to score many points at all. They scored actually 0 points. They lost 20.
Yeah, they did not.
They lost 27-0. The over-under was 37.5, and I picked the under, so that was a comfortably under, to paraphrase Pink Floyd.
Comfortably numb watching that game.
I didn't watch that game. I would have needed to be comfortably numb under some sort of happy drug to really enjoy that game, especially with Deshaun Watson as quarterback. But I feel if I was on a drug, he would have taken advantage of me. So I didn't care for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hey, you heard it here first. We're all thinking it. We're not in the Deshaun Watson business on this.
No. Did you feel bad about winning on that then because it was Cleveland contributed to your victory?
No, because it was under. So like it was under. So like it was because neither team was successful enough. So it was a Cleveland defensive match. I have nothing against the defense on Cleveland. Myles Garrett's a great player, even if he's sort of a jerk on the field sometimes. But with the Mason Rudolph helmet. But there's not. I have Denzel Ward's a great cornerback. There's a lot. They have some good players on the defense, but there's so I don't, and it's not the defense's fault that the quarterback is um, Sean Watson. So,
Right.
but yeah, so I was 1-2. You were 2-1. I believe that has narrowed our gap. I believe now through 9 weeks, I am 14-13 in my locks of the week, slightly above 500. You were 13-14, slightly below 500. So we're like we were last year. We were within a game of one another. I think we were even closer last year. There was a tie one of us had. So I believe
Yeah.
you
Or I
won by
landed on a push one week or something, and
half a
then
game. That
yeah,
so now we're a one apart.
yeah,
On our big board bets, you dominated me once again, and I am minus over 5,000, I believe, this season. The last 5 weeks have been very unkind to me, and
yeah.
you are up about 2,000, if I'm
Just
right.
shy of 2 grand, yeah, for the season. This is my best week for the individual picks, at least anyway, of the weeks. I was up like almost $1,400 on the, which is like 30 something percent, I think, for the return, at least anyway, which is not so bad for a
Very,
week.
very,
This
very
is
good. So hope
73% correct picks. I will take that every time if I can get it. 71%.
maybe I'll just copy you next week, or maybe I think you'll have to regress to the mean. So I will continue probably my own windmill tilting that's been going on. I have led this kind of fool's errand to try to beat Las Vegas, but by betting every game has not been good. But if I concentrate on my regular on my top three, I'm
Yeah.
doing at least above 500. So if I can continue that, that might be the approach for me
And
to
maybe
go.
if I threw out my top three,
Think how good
it
you'd
might be
be.
better. We might both improve, right?
Yes.
It's a pretty odd way that that's worked out anyway, right? I apparently I'm not good at picking confidence, but pretty good at picking everything, I guess. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Strange.
We yeah, at least we both did, it seems like, pick the correct World Series winner, and that was the Texas Rangers, who won in 5 games over the Arizona Diamondbacks. Anything you take away from this 2023 World Series? You're happy that I think we're both happy the Rangers won. Do you think the Rangers have a good shot at making it again next year? Is this the start of a possible dynasty, or is this sort of a one and done thing, do you think?
Well, they started spending a lot more money, I think, 2 seasons ago. So I mean, it seems like they're trying to build a team that they're going to try to keep together. So I think, yeah, there certainly should be competitive the next several years. As long as they're willing to spend money and be effective with the money that they're spending too, not wasting it too much on, you know, overpriced, underperforming players like the Yankees used to do at times,
Or still have done maybe recently?
and
Yeah.
maybe are continuing to do. But I think you and I were both rooting for them to win because they would have became their first World Series victory. Mike, I've got
Yes.
a trivia question for you here based on what exactly one World Series victoried franchises. There are three others franchises, MLB franchises, that have won exactly one World Series.
Exactly, one World Series.
Can you name them? The clue that I will give you is they are all from this century.
All right.
The first victories occurred in this century.
Okay. I think the Angels have won one, but not any others. That's my
They're 1 and
first.
0. They won in 2002.
Yeah. Okay. Let me think. Let me think. I don't think the Padres have won the World Series yet.
They have not.
The
We've gone to two. They have lost them both.
Yeah,
84,
so
98.
that's not my guess. I'm thinking about the Astros. They might have won more though than two. They've won one more than one, I think now. I think they've
The
won.
Astros, they won like 3 times recently, right?
They won like two recently. Yeah, yeah. So they're not
No, no,
winning.
it was only two recently. Yeah,
They won two. They've been in a lot, but
they went. Yeah,
but they've won
they
two.
won
So
two.
it's
Yeah,
not them. Um, we have, let's see, the not the Marlins. They've won two. The Diamondbacks have won one. They've won one. They won the Kurt Schilling and Randy Johnson year in '02 or 01 when they beat the Yankees.
yep.
So that's the second one, I think.
And then they went to this one, but did not win, so they
Yes.
stuck on one.
And then the
Yeah.
Rays, I guess, are the third.
They did not win one. They went to
I
two and
thought
they
they
lost it
I thought
both.
they won one. No, okay, they
Mhm.
haven't won. So I'm missing that third team then. I was
Yeah,
thinking,
it is pretty recent. Pretty recent.
well, so
Within the last
the Nationals, of course, the Nationals
yeah.
slash Expos. That was an easy one. I should have
Yes. Yeah.
that one I should have gotten. Um, but
You just skipped over it mentally, I'm
yeah,
sure.
I guess I was thinking they were all going to be expansion teams in the West, so that's why I was thinking West Coast, and then I thought, oh yeah, the
Yeah.
Marlins are the Rays are expansion teams, so maybe they've only won once, but I forgot about the Expos slash Nationals. That
A
was
little
the
bit older franchise than you were probably looking
yeah. I
for.
knew the Mariners hadn't won yet.
Correct.
So the Brewers, have they won? Like they
They
haven't won.
have
They
not
have not won.
either.
They didn't
The
win.
Seattle Pilots slash Milwaukee Brewers. No.
Yeah, they've been in the World Series.
The Mariners are the only team that haven't even gone to the World Series, though.
Yeah, that's too bad for those Mariners. They had that great season in 2001 as well, when they had like 116 wins or something like that. 20,
Right.
something like that. It was
And
a
then we're
lot.
out, I think, in the first round.
First round. Yeah.
And then the Rockies, the other franchise that hasn't won, but they went to one in
Where they
2000.
lost to the Red Sox in one of the Worlds.
So that's right. It's 2007.
Yeah, I think they lost to the Red Sox that series.
Yeah.
Well,
Should we
let's
jump
move
on
on.
to
Yeah, let's move on to our picks. We don't have the Chiefs playing this week. They have the bye. They
yeah,
play
let's do some other really strong teams. So this week becomes a little bit strange.
Miami and Philadelphia both have buys,
Yeah.
as do the Rams. So maybe this is some
Yeah.
time, maybe Wentz could get acclimated by the time the game next week rolls around, or 2 weeks from now rolls around, or maybe Stafford will be healed enough for that to happen too. But yeah, so a lot of good teams. Three of the top teams in the NFL, probably I would say maybe three out of the top 5 or 6 teams in the NFL right now are on the bye. So I think even though Miami lost to the Chiefs, they're still a really good team. And
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
what are your are there any games? We'll talk about our bets first, then we can talk about any games that we're looking forward to, because I think the primetime games are pretty not so great this coming week. Like it was a few weeks. There was a couple weeks ago. There was a slate of really bad primetime games, and this last week had fantastic matchups in each of the time slots, and or at least what we thought to be. I think people thought Seattle Baltimore was going to be a good game. That turned out to be terrible.
Yeah.
But Philadelphia and Dallas turned out to be a good game, as
Mhm.
did Cleveland, as did Cincinnati against Buffalo. That turned out to be a good game too. So they were both
Yeah.
pretty close.
But
So
not super high scoring though, right? Wasn't that one
I
stayed
worry.
really
Yeah,
low, didn't it?
it wasn't very high scoring. I worry about
Yeah.
Cincinnati. I think maybe they've come to life. I did not bet Cincinnati for this next week. They're playing against Houston, but you made a bet in that game.
I am taking Cincinnati -6.5 versus so at home against Houston.
You don't think Stroud can repeat his 470-yard performance?
So that's where I think that
Lou Anarumo, Stevens.
if he had that performance in the Cincinnati game, it might work. But I think if he had because I had it the week before, the Cincinnati defense has that there's a whole week to prepare for what he just did. That's what I don't like Cincinnati, and I don't want to see them do well, but I just assume this is where they start beating teams handily, and that's kind of what I expect to see happening here. Is that do you see that game differently, or is that what your expectation is
No,
too?
I think I'm not sure. I think Houston can keep it close, but I think Cincinnati will win. So if I had to go one way, I'd say Cincinnati by a touchdown. So that's a little bit over 6.5.
Yeah,
So that's where I would lean. But I was not one of my locks. I ended up going with another team that vexes you, maybe even more than Cincinnati, because Cincinnati you're worried about on the football field. You're worried about the Pittsburgh Steelers in our betting competition because you can't ever seem to get them right. They are playing the aforementioned Green Bay Packers at home at Acrisure Stadium, storied Acrisure Stadium, formerly Field.
yes.
But the Steelers are favored by 3 over Green Bay, which seems very disrespectful that they're only favored by 3 at home over Green Bay, because Green Bay is A, terrible, and B, on the road. And 3 points is what you get as being the home team, really. So they see these teams as relatively even, which I know that Pittsburgh has been kind of up and down, but Green Bay's been mostly down. And I don't think there's any chance that Green Bay is gonna win 2 in a row. So this is my biggest lock of the locks. So I'll probably
Really?
miss. This is probably my biggest lock. This is if I had a giant lock, I would put it on the table.
Yeah. See, that would be the one that I would, put the tiny, tiny, tiniest lock I could find. If all the games had locks of increasing sizes, this would be the small because these are the two teams that I can't seem to figure out at all. Like I've bet on the Packers a few times and I've lost. I've bet against the Packers a few times and I've lost. And I've bet against Pittsburgh a lot and I've lost most.
So
So
I've done pretty well when I bet on Pittsburgh. So I'm betting on Pittsburgh to win over Green Bay by at least a field goal. So that's my
maybe
lock.
this week I will join you.
My lock
Finally.
of locks.
What if I end up joining you? Will you flee from your lock of the week and pick the other on the big board?
No, I'm gonna stick with it. I like Pittsburgh -3 over Green Bay. I don't know about the over under or the money line. I'm going to do Pittsburgh, of course, too, if I pick them to win. So I'm not sure about the
Yeah.
over under, but I like Pittsburgh over Green Bay as my first lock of the week. But
With a
also
modest
my lock
38
of locks.
points.
If I had a giant safe to put locks in, the safe would be the Steelers over Green
Wow. Wow.
Bay.
Wow.
How about your second lock of the week? You don't
My
have
second,
you don't have to rank your locks in order of
yeah, I think
sure.
my next two picks, I'm much more confident in my first one. I've got Indy -1.5 at New England. Uh, it's another one of those things where like Indy seems like they can score no matter who their quarterback is, and their defense is pretty
German game
decent.
though.
And New England doesn't seem to be able to do anything. I don't know what they're.
So it's another game in Germany, so that could also maybe
It
throw
is maybe throwing off
off.
some
But
things. And,
I don't have a feel one way or the other for that game, so I'm not
um,
against what you're saying. I have no feel. It's like I think you're probably like you had no feel about the Pittsburgh Green Bay.
yeah,
I have no feel about Indianapolis, New England. So I would probably just go against you just to see if I can catch up on the big
yeah,
board. But I will probably just lose more ground since you've been right more often than you've been wrong. Although not on your locks of the week.
true.
So um my second lock of the week is a team that also has been doing poorly lately, but I think is a strong team. They're also coming off a bye this week. That is San Francisco over Jacksonville. They're going to Jacksonville. They're 3-point underdogs to the Jags, who have won, I think, 5 in a row. But I don't think the Jaguars are very good. even though their record is strong, I still don't think they're that great. I think the 49ers are one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the NFL. So I think the 49ers aren't going to lose 4 games in a row. I can't see that happening. Um, so I see them winning over the Jags. Or maybe the 3 point favorites over the Jags, the 3 point favorites. So I see them
Like
winning
road favorites.
road favorites. I see them winning by more than, I don't know, more than a field goal. I think when the 49ers win, they tend to win big. And so I like the 49ers over Jacksonville. Even though I think Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, Christian Kirk, all those guys, Calvin Ridley are all good players, but I don't see how I think the defense is okay at Jacksonville, but the Chiefs, I remember playing in Jacksonville, they played a relatively subpar game, I thought, and that game was pretty comfortable the whole time. I think the 49ers are willing to show more than what the Chiefs were willing to show, and I think they will come out on top by at least a touchdown. But I'm only favoring them at -3.
So you only need 4, right? So that's it.
Yeah.
2 safeties,
2
the tie
safeties.
game, and then back-to-back safeties
Yeah.
finishes it
Or
off.
a field goal and a 2 point conversion safety. That's a 1 point safety would also
Yeah, a blocked extra point that's returned the other way.
and then dropped, and then the other team recovers in the end zone, or a blocked extra point and the recovery man gets it in the field of play, but then runs back for some reason into his own end zone, and the offense tackles in there. So they would get 1 point for that safety. So the defense can get 1 point on a 2 point conversion, and the offense can also get 1 point on a 2 point conversion if they play the card. But I don't think there's ever been a 1 point safety in the NFL. We haven't talked about this as a possibility, but
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Not that I've ever even considered that as being a possibility. So that's pretty funny.
So technically, you could only score 1 point in a football game, but it's extremely, extremely rare
and just difficult to do. It doesn't happen. That doesn't mean a blocked extra point doesn't happen hardly ever, really. But
I guess a 2 point conversion that fails, and then the defense kind of fumbles it out of the end zone or something, a touchback or something like that. It could be a safety. That could be there could be a weird little thing like that could turn into a safety. But since you're on the goal line, but it's still very unusual.
Yeah. I mean, extraordinary circumstance to produce that result.
I would prefer that it would be a more comfortable. I don't have to rely on a 1 point safety for the 49ers to cover the 3 points. I'd rather them win a blowout outright over Jacksonville, which I think is possible. But the way the 49ers have been playing, maybe Purdy is turning into a pumpkin before our eyes. So we'll see. But I think he'll bounce back. I think he's a good quarterback. So that's my second lock. How about your third lock? Are they going in order of lockiness, or are they just sort of?
I think so. I think so. I don't know. I don't think intentionally, but I think it actually has worked out that way. But I'm going to one of those ugly primetime games for my third pick. I've got Raiders plus 1.5 against the New York Jets.
Against the New York team.
The Chargers against the Jets last week, so it seems only, easy, at least anyway, to just pick against the Jets with another AFC West team who seems to be on the way up, and the Jets seem to be on the way. I don't know where they're going, but it's not up. So I'll take that Raiders plus 1.5 all the time. I think.
I think that's a good bet too. I think of the bets that you've made, that's the one I like the most, because I do think that the Raiders will probably. I don't really trust Aiden O'Connell very much, but I think that Josh McDaniels is more of a weight on the team, and him being gone helps the Raiders a lot. And I think there's still a little bit of that afterglow week 2. Maybe there's not quite as much as there was week 1, but it's only 1.5 points. So I think, I think the Raiders could win by touchdown, and that could, or even just a field goal, and that would cover it.
Yeah. They could even lose by a point, but still cover that spread.
I'm betting on another cross country matchup for my third bet, and that is Seattle -6 at home over Washington. I don't think Washington can make that big road trip. I think Seattle's probably going to bounce back after being embarrassed at Baltimore last week. I think Seattle's one of the toughest places to play in the NFL. It's a very long trip for Washington, and so I like Seattle. They're favored by 6, which is quite a few points, but I think they win by at least a touchdown or two. And so I like that Seattle -6 at home over Washington.
Even against the number 2 quarterback in the league, Mike.
Even against the number 2 passing yardage quarterback in the league, Samuel Howell the third, or Thurston Howell the fourth. I like that. Um I like the Seahawks there. Are there any other games that you're interested in watching this week? Are there any good matchup? I think the San Francisco Jacksonville is a good one.
Yeah. I mean, the
Cleveland
Cleveland Baltimore
Baltimore.
game is kind of pretty important, I guess, at least for the division and probably the playoff picture. I don't like either of those teams. I don't know that I really want to watch the game, but you know,
Yeah, I think the Monday night game, Denver Buffalo, could actually turn out to be somewhat interesting because I think Denver is turning it around, and I think Buffalo desperately needs a win. So
yeah.
that could be an okay game. It's way better than the Sunday night matchup, that's for sure. The Raiders Jets matchup. The Jets have been on Sunday Night Football so many times because they thought, well, Aaron Rodgers is going to play for the Jets and they're going to always be in contention, but
Yeah.
that didn't happen.
And do you think the league will start flexing games earlier in the season rather than just reserving the flex positions later in the year?
I think they should. I think they should well, I think they probably should. I think they should
So
start
maybe
maybe,
it'll be called like the Aaron Rodgers rule
yeah,
for future.
or like certain teams can, like, they'd say, well, this team is not, I'd give them 8 weeks, and rather than they start like week 12 or 13, I think, for the flex. I'd maybe start midway, at least maybe week 9. At least this is week 10. I would have started by now
Oh,
for the flex.
did you hear Aaron Rodgers' self-proclaimed return expectation
That he's back in a
within the
few weeks, right?
this and then he later clarified, saying like, okay, that was a little, optimistic. 3 fortnights is his new estimate.
6 weeks, huh?
But that was what he used, was three
Three
fortnights.
fortnights. Well, maybe he thought he was talking to Kyler Murray and was talking about 3 fortnight game lengths, and so I don't know how long. But I think Kyler Murray's more of a Call of Duty guy than a Fortnite guy. Isn't that his game of choice?
That was the report about his performance and the release date of Call of Duty, like
The new
updates
Call
to
of
the
Duty
game.
comes out, he is not as effective. I don't. He Speaking of Kyler Murray, he is coming back this week for the Cardinals. Do you think uh he's going to be effective? That's one reason why Dobbs got traded, is because we knew Kyler Murray was going to come back in a week or two, and the Arizona Cardinals are going to be playing the Atlanta Falcons in a matchup of bird teams. Do you think the
Yes.
Falcons will beat the Kyler Murray led Cardinals, or the Cardinals now are kind of an average team again because they have Murray at quarterback?
Well, I mean, average is an improvement in this case, then, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
they become mediocre
um,
rather than
so
being.
it's yeah, god awful, or what was the phrase you were going to use there? What did you say?
I said way below mediocre. I don't. I
Oh, it
don't
is
know.
way below me. Okay, yes. Yeah. I thought you were going to go like way, way down.
Maybe third percentile, something like
Like,
that. Two
yeah.
standard below
Yeah.
the
I mean,
mean.
if they're a mediocre team, then I think either team really has a shot. I think the line on that game is only 1.5 points. So it's not Atlanta's favored, but it's a close game, I
If I
think,
had to
because
pick, I'd pick the Cardinals in
Vegas
that
is a game.
because I don't
Yeah,
think.
I might. I mean, it might. Yeah, we don't know what kind of shape he's in though. So I guess that's the only thing we just don't quite understand. But he's been effective in the past, and anytime you can start, throw a run first or at least run option guy out there, there's a dynamic chance for just about anything to happen in the course of a game. So, and Atlanta's not, you know, a fantastic team, but they've played pretty well in the
Is it
season.
Heineke going to start again, do you think, or is it going to be
I
Ritter again?
think so, but their defense is pretty decent, but it's, against a dynamic quarterback. So this is going to be, more of a test for Atlanta's defense than they've probably been up against recently. So I don't know. We'll see. But I don't know. I think I would, like you. I think I would actually pick Arizona just because of that dynamic possibility of what Kyler Murray can bring to a game. Although the team may not want him to do that if they're trying
Yeah.
to lose.
Did you know that Arizona is leading the entire NFL in strength of victory? Even though they've only won
Ooh,
one game, they have a 625 percentage in the strength of victory department.
wow. I would not have guessed that.
That's because they beat the Dallas Cowboys as their only victory. Uh,
Okay.
they're 625. Um, the Chiefs have a 508 strength of victory, which is one of the top ones. In the in the AFC, it is the Houston Texans with a 576 strength of victory that is leading. So the teams with the highest strength of victory margins, neither of them are in the playoffs if the season ended today.
So
And
I wonder how much you should take that into consideration as being an important stat
the
across
yeah,
the league.
well, the Miami Dolphins have the lowest strength of victory in the entire NFL, even slightly below the New York Giants' strength of victory. They're two.
Well,
The
and that show that I mean that has proven like when they've played good teams, they've lost to them, and I think most of their victories have come against teams that are not good at all. So yeah, I guess that makes sense that
yeah,
stat would be unfavorable.
if the Chargers start to win more games, the Dolphins will look better. I think also
Yeah.
if the Broncos start to win more games, they'll look better too. So I think those are some of the. So in the um yeah, the AFC is it seems like pretty much every team, maybe except for the Patriots, who are 2-7, are probably still in the playoff hunt. They're only two games. They're only one AFC team is more than two games out of the final playoff spot.
Hmm.
In the NFC, there are one, two, three, four teams, five teams that are more than two games out of the final playoff spot.
Hmm.
So it seems like the AFC is pretty bunched. And again, I think it also shows that the AFC is a better conference, top to bottom,
Yeah.
than the NFC, which I think is what we had known going in. They have better quarterbacks play, and that's basically kind of what dictates how good your team is, how good your quarterback is. Speaking of good teams, is it time for our Scaff Werman Alliance to wrap up this week's Warren Trek Power Hour?
I think so.
Yeah, we avoided talking about the 16.5 point spread of Dallas and the New York Giants. You know, especially if Tommy DeVito plays quarterback, that 16.5 might be a little bit low. But I wanna wait a little longer before I make a pick for our big board.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, you have anything else to add?
Ah,
No.
16 and a half doesn't seem like it's enough. That's what I'm thinking right now.
26 and a half?
If it was 26 and a half, you might still consider it. I don't know. I mean, we'll have to look up, see what the alternate spreads are on that game
We
oh
can talk
man, I
about
don't
we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that next week. Maybe we can talk about that for next week's Warren Trek Power, especially if Dallas wins big, how much money we could, or if they lost, maybe somebody bet big on Dallas and lost a lot of money, or just Dallas on the money. Like if Dallas loses, somebody bet like 10 grand or 100 grand on Dallas on the money line to like win like $1,
minus 1,500
minus 1,500.
is what the line is right
You can
now.
bet $1,500 to win $100.
Yeah. But for us, if we bet $100, well, we're gonna win like 104 or something.
Yeah, it's not even worth doing. You might as well put it. Oh, I don't know.
I mean, that is an option for like the way we do our bets on our big board. That, that is a strategy, and maybe something that, you're in catch-up mode. Maybe that's something you want to try, but
I might. I might.
you'll get down, if it loses, you only end up down a little over $100, but if you win, you'll be up, $900 on that, $970 on the
I
betting
need it.
on.
I need it. I don't know. You're gonna get me in a desperation mode, and I'm gonna either claw my way back sort of into it, or more likely just fall farther and farther and farther
You're gonna have
back.
to start wondering if I'm encouraging you to do that. Which one?
Yes, I don't want you to psych me out. So I think we should end this week's Morning Trip Power Hour before any of these macho head games can continue. Um, do you think
Yes.
you're is he Mandelbaum style? Um, yeah, these macho head games. But anyway, that's enough macho head games for this week here at the Morning Trip Power Hour. I, as always, am Dr. Michael Lerman. He, Esquire. He, as always, is Dr. Andrew Scaff. We, as always, are Morning Trip Power Hour. Please like and or subscribe to our podcast / YouTube channel. And there are I think there are probably hundreds of episodes now on the Morning Trip Power. I think we've probably done over 100, right? You think?
I think we are over 100. Yeah.
So there's
If
hours
you
and
if you
hours and
talk about
hours of
that.
entertainment that, of course, is not dated at all, based on previous weeks. You can always find little nuggets on old timey sports or random bits of arcana, but
And
for
macho head games.
and macho head games. So many macho head games here at the Power. But we need to put a stop to those right now. And until next week, we hope your teams do well this weekend, or even if they're on a bye, we hope that there's maybe some injury healing and regrouping going on. And we'll see you back next week for another exciting episode. And until then, we will bid you good day.